Okay, hi everyone. My name is Camilla and we are Team 3. Today we'll be talking about Forever 21 CSR policies and whether or not they're following through with it. Now we're going to see the outline of our presentation. It starts with a brief introduction, then share the CSR policies, their past ethical issues, the gaps, and why we think those gaps occurred, and finish off with some challenges and the conclusion. So here's a little question. What do you think about this picture? It seems a good environment, right? This is their project level, which is a charity they support. Now I'll show you another picture. How does this one make you feel? Well, they're both connected to Forever 21. One, as I said, is their charity project, and the second picture is their factory. This is a little conflicting, right? Now we're gonna start and talk a little bit about their company. This is a little background about them. Okay, so most of us have heard that Forever 21. So I'll do a very quick overview. Forever 21 was founded in 1984 by Korean immigrants in LA. It's an American-only fast fashion retailer known for its trendy offerings and especially their low pricing. They have over 700 stores in the Americas, Asia, Middle East, and the UK. And as most of us already saw in the news, the company has been involved in various controversies, ranging from labor practices issues to animal cruelty. So on my next slide, I'll talk about what's happening currently to them. If you followed the news in this segment, you probably heard that Forever 21 filed bankruptcy in September of 2019. Why did this happen? Well, they got into trouble because they tried to expand inside and outside the US too quickly. Because of that, they shut it down more than 100 locations since its bankrupt filing. But it still had more than 800 stores globally in September of 2019. Now I'm gonna talk about their acquisition. In February of this year, Forever 21 reached an $81 million deal to sell its retail businesses to a group that includes Simon Property Group, Brooksfield Property Partners, and Authentic Reps. So because of this, now they have an opportunity to change their CSR policies in the future. Now Lee's gonna talk about their CSR current policies.
Thank you, Camilla. I'm going to talk about the corporate social responsibility policy of Forever 21. And they are focused on protecting the environment, such as they provide 100% recyclable and reusable plastic and paper bags in many of its stores. And they are currently developing apparel collection using environmentally friendly materials. And the headquarters in Los Angeles is the site of one of California's largest solar power installation. And they are focused on the protect worker rights too. The Forever 21 insists that all product supplier ensures that their employee works in safe and healthy environment and that their legal rights are respected and protected. And they also share the goal of eliminating child labor and forced labor. To meet this goal, all Forever 21 supplier must agree to its social responsibility code of conduct. And so you can see the picture in the next slide. You can see the recyclable bags and the workers are protecting their legal rights. And Forever 21 also focus on the ethical sourcing. They established a permanent fuel-free policy in 2004, and they worked with PETA to meet the guideline to avoid cruelty to animals and continue to look for ways to improve. And they also established a permanent ban on Angora, the rabbit hare, in 2014. They even have the charity program, just like Camilo said before. It's called Project Level. It's an amazing non-profit organization which nurtures the creative needs of at-risk and underserved inner-city youths in the San Francisco Bay Area. And when they partner with an organization or specific collection, a portion of the proceeds is donated to the designated charities. And thank you for that. And I'm going to move to the Angelica to talk about the past and ethical issues.
Thanks, Lee. So we're going to talk a little bit now about where some of the places where Forever 21 has gone against these policies. We're going to start by first explaining one of the methods in which Forever 21 works. So they have contractors, which means that they have their products made by outside companies. And a lot of the issues that we're going to be talking about focus on contractors within Los Angeles. So one of the first examples of ethical issues for Forever 21 came about in 2001 in a lawsuit with the Asian Pacific American Legal Center. So this organization took on cases from workers from 6 different contractors. So these were contractors. They made the clothes going specifically for Forever 21. So that's who they sued. In this particular case, it was found out that workers sewed, ironed, packed clothes. They did all this work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, a lot of grueling labor, and they were still not being paid minimum wage for these amounts. And given this was a garment factory in Los Angeles, so it should have complied with US labor laws. Despite being overworked, they were very largely underpaid. One of the lawyers in the case, Julie Sue, even suggested that Forever 21 specifically sought out contractors that would violate these labor laws or be okay kind of fudging time cards a bit. So to address these conditions, Forever 21 had to do some sort of response. A documentary called Made in LA was made to show the struggles that these workers went through, and Forever 21 then developed the vendor audit program that Lee mentioned. This was 2007 when the case ended. Now, despite having these guidelines, which they wanted the contractors to follow in order to work with Forever 21, they continued to have some issues. So some of the following issues came in 2012 and 2016 through investigation with the US Labor Department. So these same contractors with which Forever 21 had agreements, that's where they got their workers. The Department of Labor investigated these places, up to 77 different organizations, and found that 85% of them were violating these labor laws. So again, we find workers that are largely underpaid, overworked. One example came from a worker in West Covina who said that they had to make 700 shirts a day in order to be paid $6 an hour, which for around 2017 was way below minimum wage, which should have been at least $8 at that time. You can see from an example of one of the protests, no sweatshops, boycott Forever 21. So it really was these sweatshop conditions in which these workers were dealing with through the contractors. So despite Forever 21's vendor audit program to try and avoid this, work with places that comply with labor laws, their contractors certainly did not. The most recent issue for Forever 21 is accusations of animal cruelty. This came about this year in 2020. So here's a quote from PETA, an American animal rights group, and this is what one of their executives said. Consumers deserve to know that Forever 21 is profiting from an industry in which gentle lambs and sheep are beaten, mutilated, terrorized, and even killed for wool. So this statement comes following a video that was released of a lamb farm in Australia being slaughtered. You can see from the appearance of the protesters, this was a very gruesome video. And despite this backlash, Forever 21 continued to sell products that were made from these animals. So Forever 21's definitely come under fire for animal cruelty as well, despite those policies. So we've started to see some of the ethical issues. Nani is going to look and explain the exact gaps for us.
Yeah, so I will tell you a bit more about the gaps within the CSR policies of Forever 21. So we identified 2 main issues in their CSR, namely in their worker and rights protection and in their ethical sourcing policy. So in their worker rights and protection policy, you can see that they don't want child labor in their factory, and they want the workers to work in a safe and healthy environment. And as Lee already said, they have audit programs in order to check this. However, what they don't mention is how much they will pay US workers in the factories. And what you see is that they actually get underpaid, so they don't even get the minimum wage for how much they work. They also have a problem with ethical sourcing, even though they're saying they don't use rabbit fur and rabbit hair, that they protect goats, and that they don't source cotton from Uzbekistan since they use unethical ways to get the cotton. they don't mention anything about how the wool is sourced from lambs and sheep. And as Angelica told you already, on this farm in Australia, they didn't do it ethically at all. So you see that there's a big gap between that. And Jane will tell you a bit more about why we believe that this gap occurred.
So we all know that Forever 21 is a private company and it doesn't have a prominent logo. It's not owned by someone who's famous, so they're not responsible to the public. They're only responsible to do what's legally right. And that's why we see a lot of times that they only do what's legally right and not ethically right. We also see that they have motivated blindness and indirect blindness in the case of the manufacturers and contractors, because they say that they audited them and their work is over, but that is not the case, because we can clearly see that even after auditing, their laborers are going underpaid. But what their rationale behind saying that is that we are not the ones who are doing it, it's our contractors. We made sure it was right, but we don't know what they're doing. They just push it onto them. And since they're profiting out of this, they don't speak up against it. We also see that Forever 21 has a goal to give cheaper goods. And I think that's the reason that they keep practicing the unethical issues like underpaying their laborers, and also sourcing wool that can be easily, like if you source wool ethically, it would be costlier for the company. And that's another reason I think they keep saying that they want to provide cheaper goods, but they have to understand that the consumers that they're targeting don't care about cheap clothes anymore. They now care about ethically sourced clothes. So now these are the challenges they need to overcome to understand the new customers. And that's what Akshay will speak more about.
So these are the challenges that are faced by Forever 21 and by other companies. So there is no motivation for them to change, and also the bankruptcy is not due to the ethical issues. And also they are motivated by money and not by any social goods. And also the company has ethical issues consistent with the industries. And then that is. So this is the conclusions we have made for the Forever 21. This creating shared values and rebranding. The values is like which makes fashion accessible, reshift their mentality, and also focus less on cheap clothes, focus more on providing an income that can afford clothes. So these are the conclusions we have made for the Forever 21. And next slide is like which are the references we have used. Thank you.